then built a fully interactive wireframe prototype, which simulated the customer's actual click-through experience and allowed us to quickly iterate and explore innovative interaction design approaches. Our creative team developed a sleek, sophisticated, modern look and feel for the site to better reflect the Cessna brand. Our simplified site navigation utilizes innovative push-down mega menus that allow customers to quickly find content while still offering full access to all page content below. Landing pages for each of Cessna's 3 aircraft families make it easy to compare models via graphical representations of key data points. Previously, customers had difficulty finding information, so we developed long-form pages to provide all content about each model in one place. Customers can explore each model via 360 tours, or view widescreen galleries of photos to see more shots of action. Customers can also view customization options for each aircraft, including seating configurations and fabric and color combination options. Parallax scrolling immerses the customer inside a Cessna aircraft, highlighting key features and providing a sense of depth. We also knew that customers were searching for specs, so we provided infographics and charts illustrating performance data points. Another major goal of the website is to highlight Cessna's service offerings and the human element of their dedicated service teams. The citation service section promotes their service centers, aircraft teams, mobile service units, and parts and protection programs. Interactive maps show service facilities around the world. Each citation service center page introduces the staff who will be servicing their aircraft. The Why Cessna section further differentiates the brand, showcasing their engineering and design excellence, as well as their commitment to safety and service. Our site redesign just launched in April 2013, but we're already getting positive feedback from customers.
Submission really was about the process. You got every single step of a traditional UX process from an agency standpoint very well described and defined. So who the audience was, personas, research, testing, iterations, design, navigation, and they took this project that on the face of it wasn't that technically exciting and made it into a case of UX best processes that won an award. I want to show you one more project. This actually won a gold. It's from Sweden, and that's a picture of these guys. They showed up in tuxes, which I thought was so cute. So they came over from Sweden. It's from Kava Interactive Digital Agency, and they won for the daily newspaper in Sweden is Helsingin Sanomat, and it was basically a transformation, a digital transformation of a print newspaper into the digital age. So some things that were interesting about them, and probably the key reason why they won gold, was that they focused on the business problem and they really emphasized the impact. So they had pretty dramatic results with their transformation, both in terms of getting digital paid subscribers and engagement. And they showed how they iterated and got there along the way. So it wasn't necessarily the most cutting edge project from a technology angle, but it was a challenging one for UX because the UX was really at the center of driving the business solution. They needed an excellent UX that translated across all of their digital channels to drive a new model of revenue, and they succeeded at doing that. Google won the grand prize last year for Google Now, and I'm actually not going to show you this submission, and there's a couple of reasons why. The first is they won the grand prize anyway, which shows you that the project, of course, is the most important. So yes, you can win an award even if you have a sort of humdrum project and you make a great case study or submission, but obviously if you have a really fantastic project, that's even better. In Google Now's case, the project and the product itself is amazing. For those of you that don't know, it intuits what you need, and instead of you asking for directions or asking for your flight, it already knows that you need that information, it'll push it to you. But their submission was it didn't go as much into the process as we would have liked. And also, I didn't want to give the impression that you need to have Google's resources to win a UX award. So the first submission that you saw was from a 19-year-old student, and that should kind of set the stage for the fact that anyone can win if their process and approach is good. And so now we're going to just look for a minute at what the sort of universal aspects of those submissions were, which can be extrapolated into any great UX case study. So the key things there were that really it wasn't just about the product, it was also about the process, and there was a narrative context. So it was basically a nice story. And there was a behind-the-scenes approach where it wasn't just, okay, here's the finished product, it's so beautiful. That's what you would expect more in a visual design portfolio. But we're UX people, and we want to know about the research and the background and the testing and the steps you took, and we want to see the prototypes and understand the interim steps and how you made the decisions that you made. And that also applies to a UX portfolio. So if you are a classic visual designer, you might want to have really pretty looking final outcome. But if you are doing UX and you're targeting to a UX audience, then you need to show your process and the steps that you took and your thinking that went into it, as well as, of course, the audience. Some things that need to be said, even though it might seem to be obvious, is you don't want to put a square peg in a round hole. In other words, make sure your submissions for the UX awards and your case studies in general are targeted to the problem at hand. Some non-award winning submissions that we get are just companies that submit the same submission and they submit like 20 other things, and they aren't targeted at all to UX, and they don't talk about their UX process. And obviously we can't evaluate it based on the UX if we don't have that information. So that should be obvious, but it's amazing how many we get like that. And similarly, the form submission that goes along with the submission, if you are going to submit, is important because you're summarizing your project succinctly, and that's the description we're actually going to use to describe the product. If you can't describe your product in an elevator pitch or in a few sentences, and your process and approach in a problem-solution format, then you're probably not going to win a UX award because you didn't actually really understand succinctly what the problem was and how you approached it. So what is the formula? Well, the magic formula for winning submission is really this product plus process plus great story. So the product is the most important, but if you have all three, you have a really good chance of winning, and you have a pretty good chance of winning even if you have two. So you can think about that when you're putting your submissions together and when you're putting UX case studies in general together. So if we look at what makes a great case study for the awards or any portfolio, the key thing is to actually, especially as UX people, we should be considering the UX of our case studies. So you want your case study itself to be intuitive, functional, elegant, ideally inspiring. It should show something about the process. It's not just a product demo, and you're targeting it towards an audience of UX professionals. So you know who your audience is, and you're designing the product and solution for them. So the key parts, doesn't matter really how you want to think about this, but there's sort of 4 parts: the problem, solution, approach, and benefits, which you could also think about as context, product, process, and impact, or what and where, how and who, etc. So these are all variations on the same thing. I like the left because it's easy to remember: product, solution, approach, and benefits. And what the focus is on that narrative. So I'm sure most of us, like somewhere in middle school or high school, had some kind of English class where we talked about like the rising action, and then there's this climax, and then there's the denouement, and the closing. And it's basically the same thing for your case studies. You want to start with the situation, describe your process or the product, have this magic moment where, of course, it was the best thing ever, and you tell why, and then you close it out. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dale Carnegie, but of course, he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, and there's classes you can take in his approach for public speaking, and they talk about the magic formula, which is basically the same thing. It's incident, action, benefit. So in the Dale Carnegie approach, you get straight into the incident. So if you're starting a talk like I did tonight, I went straight into the snoozeville. That was a Dale Carnegie technique to basically get people interested, and then you backtrack into the process, i.e. the action. And then you hit with the benefit of what you want the person to do. So a case study can also have that same approach. Key points, of course, is you can always show versus tell. So whenever you can use a picture over a text, that's always good for any project. My presentation here is pretty text heavy because a version of it is on SlideShare, so I'd like to keep it as a reference for people. Context is important, so who are you designing for, and what's the audience and the environment? How are they using it? So we saw with Active, we saw the woman, she had lost her arm, you could see her right there, she was on the construction site. When it came to Cessna, of course that's a very different problem. These are people who are buying multi-million-dollar jets. And what we learned during the Q&A, and that was actually in a different part of their submission, was that it's actually, in the case of those multimillionaires buying jets, it's actually their assistants buying the jets. So the millionaires aren't buying the jet, they're not clicking buy, on the website. It's a supplemental to support a regional sales channel. It's more information and validation and research. So they research how do these people buy a custom jet, and they designed it for it. And I don't know if you noticed, but LA wasn't on their list of regions. Only San Francisco was, so somebody's got to get $1 billion exit in the audience here and get a Cessna dealership. Emotions and people are very important. Whenever you can see the person interacting, like with ZocDoc, there were the interviews. If you can actually show, instead of just showing your wireframe with a picture of a can or something like that, when you can actually show people, even if they're interacting with a paper wireframe, still just having that interaction where you actually show somebody interacting with the product is very powerful. And of course for us, because we're UX people, we want to understand the process. Even if it was written out on a napkin or a whiteboard or whatever your process was, show it and describe how you made the decisions that you made and the iterations that you did. And then of course testing is absolutely imperative. What kind of testing did you do and how, and what was the outcome and what did you learn? I thought I would actually take a little moment here before we go into sort of summary, to also add in this information from a colleague of mine in New York, Matt Weber. He has this site, industry.com, and he put together an analysis of the top UX skills in April 2000 based on 1,500 UX job ads. And he broke it down based on your level of seniority. So as you can see, most UX job ads out there are from mid-level. There's not that many entry, and there's very few at the senior levels as well. But if you want to be a quote UX designer, there's a lot of work out there right now. So what's the number one thing people are looking for? Number 5 thing is prototype. This is a countdown. So 5 is prototype. That's across all levels. So this is standardized across all levels. 4 was wireframes. 3 was research. 2, usability. And drum roll, number 1 is mobile. So the number one thing you want to make sure and have in your portfolio, absolutely no matter what, is you want to have a mobile project in your portfolio. If you believe this research anyway, which I do. And then if you look at the breakdown, there were some interesting parts to how he broke it down based on the seniority. So junior people, they were looking actually more for the portfolio, and as you might imagine, if you're beginning in an area, people are looking for tangible applied skills. So you might have things like JavaScript or Photoshop listed, whereas you wouldn't expect to have Photoshop listed on, you know, a director of UX's job profile. They're looking more for standards and do you understand research and strategy, but mobile appeared everywhere. And this is the actual breakdown. On the far left there, you have entry level. On the far right, you have executive. So you can see that there are more skills, like hard skills listed for entry and associate, and then as it went into executive, it got to be a little more abstract and about management and communications, as you would expect, with a few things like mobile going across the entire way. So basically the inference here is you know what to put in your portfolio and what keywords you want to tag for anything online. And if we're looking at some special cases for your portfolio, this next section, what I did is I basically broke down into some lists how a portfolio needs to be customized based on your audience and what it's supposed to be doing. And then we'll look at some special cases that often come up that people ask, what do I do in this scenario? So it all comes down to designing for your audience. So that's really the number one. Whether you're going into a job, or whether you're applying to the UX awards, or whether you're trying to gain a new client, you have to think about who are you presenting your UX case study to, and what are their needs, and what are they looking for, and then you need to tailor your presentation and possibly your portfolio to match. Maybe you cherry pick with projects and you emphasize different aspects. So if somebody's looking for, you know, a mobile UX designer, obviously you want to go in there with some mobile UX designs. And if you're looking for a usability researcher, then you need to focus on your usability testing. And it seems obvious, but most of us have sort of set portfolios, and we don't ever think to actually emphasize different aspects of what we present to people and how we present them. And in a case study, in an ideal world, at least in terms of how you present the project, you would emphasize different things based on the audience, which should be obvious because we're UX people, and that's what we should be thinking about as our audience. So if we're looking at the UX awards in specific, talking about just what makes an ideal product or service, it really runs the gamut. You saw that you can have an innovative project that's really cutting edge. You can have a kind of humdrum project that just shows really fantastic best practices. But you can also have something that's just showing new interface challenges, socially progressive things that are really trying to move the needle, always draw interest. Any kind of new or emerging platform, like the first year of the awards, 2011, Nike Plus by RGA won, so that was like a Fitbit precursor, which in 2011 wasn't yet, you know, all the rage. So that was still a very cutting edge project. Whereas in 2012, Bloomberg's terminal was put on a mobile app. So the Bloomberg terminal, you can now have the light version of it if you're a subscriber on the mobile app. Really complicated interaction and interface design problem that was all about information architecture and testing. So it very much deserved an award. And you've seen some of these other ones and how they worked. So it's basically the same things that make good UX, make a good submission. Some things that are unique to the UX Awards and don't really apply to any other case study scenario is we're really focusing on video, as you saw. So if you submit a non-video submission, then you're going to, and you actually are a finalist, you're going to have to make a video anyway. And the reason is because when you go into a job interview or when you're presenting to a client, you're standing there and you're talking and you're telling the story, and whatever your collateral is your backup. Whereas when you're submitting to an award, we don't have you in person, so the video allows you to tell the story in a narrative just like you would in person in another context. And it allows you to control the narrative, which is also very important. We don't really care about your domain experience, we just focus on process. Whereas, let's say you're trying to get a job. Then, if you're a UX designer or an interaction designer, then the visual element of what you're doing is probably quite important. And of course, they're going to want to see wireframes and actual tangible outcomes and things that you did. And they're also really going to want to know what part of this, especially for if you were on a team, did you do versus somebody else. And they're going to want to know that you kept up with the latest design thinking. So can you describe what flat design is, or other best practices in the industry? If you're a researcher, though, that doesn't mean you can't have a case study. So a lot of times people say, well, I don't really understand. UX isn't just about design. I do research, or I do strategy. What do? I have nothing pretty to show. That's okay. Ideally, you're going to be finding a job where people understand that and they're looking for your skills. You're not trying to get a UX designer job, you're trying to get another job with your skill set. And they're going to be looking for basically the same idea, which is a case study format that shows the problem, the solution, the audience, the testing, what steps you made, why did you do the things that you did, how did you get to the outcome. So you can still put something together that's very compelling. If you want to try and get a client, and you're looking at making UX case studies for, let's say, an agency portfolio, then of course it's a whole different ballgame because you can't assume that your audience is going to know anything about UX and the process. And in fact, they'll probably be turned off by seeing all that process stuff that UX people get excited about. So you do have to customize it for a client audience because they just want to see the outcome and know how successful it was. So, you know, ideally it's a big name and you did this fantastic thing and there was this huge win and they made a ton of money at the end. You know, that's ideally what your case study basically looks like when it comes to a client. It's not enough information if your audience is UX professionals and you're trying to get a job. It's a very different focus. But it can still be approached from the same process format. And of course, the company focus is also really important. So, are you trying to get a job in a lean or agile product shop versus a digital agency? Or is it a huge enterprise company or a large software company versus a startup? Those are going to be looking for very different things. You can see on the job board over there, there's a couple startups, and startups are always looking for the unicorns, right? They want somebody who can do like everything in the world because they don't have a big budget. So they want somebody who knows research and they can do visual design, they can prototype, and by the way, they're a front-end developer, and maybe they can do product. And whereas if you go to a big company, then it's all siloed, and you're going to be doing you're going to be the chief usability tester, or you're going to be the chief interaction designer, whatever it is. So you need to think about that in terms of how you're tailoring your case study in your portfolio. Are you going to be a jack of all trades and emphasize your breadth, which will be relevant to a startup? Or are you going to focus on depth, which is going to be very important for an enterprise company? Same thing with digital agencies. They want to see that you work with clients. Do you know how to interact with clients? Have you gone through all the typical steps that an agency might go through? Whereas a lead shop probably wouldn't want to see a submission like you saw from Cessna, which was a multi-month submission, and they had nice personas and all that kind of stuff. That cost a lot of money, and it wasn't lean at all. They spent a lot of time up front doing research and process and approach before they actually had an outcome. So you have to know who you're targeting and target it for them. So if we want to summarize, there's basically three things that summarize this entire presentation. The first part is just a award-winning case study has three parts. It's about the product itself, it's about your process, focusing on UX, of course, and it's about telling it in a compelling story. And you need to design it for your target audience, whoever that is. And then, of course, you have to focus on the story itself. So, nice, happy ending where everybody feels good at the end. So, that's it for the presentation. I thought now we might do a little bit of Q&A.
How would you present a portfolio item if it's proprietary or the project we worked on is sensitive to privacy?
Like an NDA?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? I thought I had a slide in that, but it seems to have been missed. So when you have a privacy issue like that, then what you want to do is basically anonymize the data. So basically, you can take your project and let's say you can break out the content, you can change the client name, you can make everything to be, project ABC for client X or something like that, and try and extrapolate and focus on the process. So you wouldn't show like any real proprietary screenshots, at least not in any resolution that people might be able to see, and then you would hide anything that might be considered personally identifiable. Or identifiable for the client. So you can still show confidential projects. You're going to have to just do some work in basically creating them into be a generic sample project that shows your process and approach instead.
I've seen examples of that too. Yeah, where they just make notes. Okay, next question. For the UX awards, for a project that's a little bit more on the lean and agile side, what would you say in terms of the submissions that you've seen for some of the strong points in lean and agile things if some of your clients as heavy as assessment?
Well, even if your process is simply like a whiteboard, or you do a lot of paper sketching, or you're just showing a flow chart, that's fine. And of course, ideally, if you can show iterations based on data, so let's say you're doing any kind of like A/B testing, or you have a landing page that's getting information from Unbounce or something like that, then you can show the results there. You can say, well, we tried option A, and we got this kind of click-through, and we tried option B, and it was this kind of, so we iterated. So you can actually still show your process. It's going to be a little dirtier, but again, your audience is UX professionals, so we don't care about that. It's about the story and the decisions you make.
That's a good question. You mentioned that you like that it's good to have prototypes. Prototypes are often they're kind of clumsy. So like in other words, if you don't click to follow the flow that we set up, unless it's a really high fidelity prototype. So is the expectation to have them in the portfolio, or maybe just have a screen grab of them in the portfolio?
I think it would depend on who your audience is and what their expectations are. Like if you're going in for a job and they want to know that you've worked in Azure, if you have worked in Azure, then of course it behooves you to actually say, here's an Azure prototype, and you walk them through it, or you allow them to go through it, There's a sort of related question to that, which is like, what format should my portfolio be? Should it be online? Should it be in paper? Should it, be a video? How should I present it? And my personal opinion on this is that, and what I've heard, since I've done this thing now with these panels, as other people seem to agree, is that a good hiring manager will be format agnostic. They're really looking for the content. And how you tell it and what your story is. So it's kind of up to you to some degree whether you want to bring in, a print portfolio that you talk about, or you have it on an iPad. The one thing that's risky is to have all of your stuff just sitting online open, because most of us are working on projects that are confidential. Maybe they haven't launched yet. It's all proprietary process stuff. So you're putting yourself really at risk by showcasing all of that in the open web. You could potentially have it on a password-protected site or something like that. But I always think if you're going to get a job that requires any kind of experience with prototyping, then it's good to have at least 1 to 2 prototypes that if the person asks, you can actually click through and show. Next.
Yeah, what do you do when you don't know the results of a project that you've just completed? Like, let's say you did a campaign for X global brand, and it's not going to launch for another 3 months or something. What do you say to an employer when you're going for an interview?
You say just that.
So, but aren't they looking for results? Like, I mean, it just seems very counterintuitive overall.
You know, I mean, everybody's been in that situation where, or I mean, as UX people, we're also in the situation all the time where we create one vision for the product, and then what launches is something like completely different. And then you're stuck with this thing where you're like, what do I do now? Because if they go to the site, I'm gonna like hide my head in shame because it wasn't look like anything that I actually had any involvement with. So you have to focus on what you did in your process and your approach and your decisions. And you know what? People are so busy. The chance of them actually going to say like, oh, well, this is different than the website, or well, that's changed. They're not going to have the time. They're looking to evaluate you and what you're bringing to the table to solve their problems. So of course it's better if you can say this fantastic success story in terms of metrics and impact. But it's okay if you can't. I think one of the things is that, well, they've gotten more sophisticated. Like, the actual focus on UX process and approach and how the narrative is crafted has gotten more sophisticated. And I'm hoping that this year it's going to go up another level. And I think that's because there's an emerging better understanding of what UX is beyond the UX community. So, you know, several years ago, there were, you know, information architects and interaction designers, and we had a certain approach that involved wireframes and testing and making personas and stuff like that. But product people didn't really get it, and visual designers didn't get it. And now there's the whole emergence of lean startup actually is a real thing that I feel like evangelized UX process to the sort of average technologist in terms of testing and iterating and making your product customer-centric. Because if you look at the core of lean startup, it's about designing a product that solves a customer problem and designing it from the point of view of the customer. So it ultimately basically evangelized UX and its value. And now you're seeing, like in the last year or two, like even with VCs, there's a lot of VCs that won't even invest in companies unless they have a UX person on their founding team, which never would have happened. It wouldn't even have been a consideration, like even 2 years ago. So there's a greater, broader understanding about what it takes to build a successful product and how you don't just launch this incredible product and it works great the first time. You have to iterate, you have to test, you have to refine your vision, and you have to, in an ideal world for something like this, you document that process a little bit so we can understand the approach. Yeah, Industray, INDUSTRAY.com, which is just like, it's a new, brand new site service that another UX person in New York, Matt Weber, who runs the UX in the area, just started doing.
And is there a report
That one is because that's his like test one. So he did the UX community as a test one, so that same information that you saw, you'll see on the website. He's hoping it's going to become like a subscription product. That's actually, it's a great project because if you look at what it does, it's basically just analyzing keywords and job ads. So technologically, it's not that sophisticated, but it's really useful, and then it does nice charts and graphs that we can all understand, so it's a great product.
Is it a requirement that the case studies be produced in-house? It struck me you said we're talking about the UX of the case study itself, and that you could just essentially hire someone from outside to produce something really fantastic for you and win an award that really has, those people don't necessarily have a connection to the process. So do you think there's maybe a little bit of a complication there?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we get a lot of submissions from digital agencies. And actually, if we talk about evolution, that's one thing that you saw the first year. It was primarily digital agencies, and now they still are probably 30%, but they're not everything. There's a reason for that, which is digital agencies have a budget and staff that is dedicated just to submitting stuff to awards, which most of us don't have.
Right.
So they, RGA has like a whole team, like several people, and all they do is put stuff together for awards. Most of us don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So you do see oftentimes, I mean, that's kind of the same case where you have an agency that's submitting a project on behalf of a client project. There's nothing wrong with that as long as they get the client's buy-in. And it's the same thing here, really. I mean, yes, of course, you could, I guess, hire someone. But if you look at the production value of what won there, one thing that probably should have really stood out was that the production value was actually extremely low. There was no voiceover on any of the winning submissions. They literally just took some generic music that they found, and they probably, run some simple tracking on what they were doing on their computer to make a video based on where they were clicking, and they put all the main points in text. So they could basically easily take a PDF or a keynote and create a video out of it with not much work. So I don't think that the production value is really the focus here.
I think that's it. Thank you very much, Beverly.
And also to GA for hosting us and for the wonderful drinks. And I hope you guys all submit a book.
And I hope that you present or you come down and have the award.
but I know